The MEAC has made a small but big time change to MEAC Media Day that makes the event feel more and more like a Michael Vick, Desean Jackson welcoming party. Oh, yeah, it's locked on HBCU. Play my music.
You are Locked On HBCU, your daily podcast covering HBCU sports. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
What's going on, family? Welcome back to another episode of the Locked On HBCU podcast, your number one daily one-stop shop for everything HBCU athletics, Monday through Friday. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. And now, of course, Sam Darian Gray, a.k.a. the Mouth of the South, Texas Southern alum and former TSU Herald Sports editor and current contributing writer at USA Today's Saints Wire and site expert at Who Dat Dish. Thank you for going on this journey with me. Making Locked On HBCU your first listen of the day every day, and everydayers, do not forget that just because the mic cuts off does not mean that the journey is over. Just means it's time to follow me on Twitter at South Exclusives. Starts with an S and ends with an S. Today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. Right now, new customers can get $150 in bonus bets when your first $5 bet wins. So go ahead and make every moment more. We'll wrap up today's episode with a look at Desean Jackson following the blueprint that Michael Vick laid just a couple of months ago. Speaking of Vick, his debut is going to be nationally televised on ESPN, and I do not believe that the amount of games in prime time will stop. But I want to kick this whole episode off with Michael Vick and Desean Jackson because it feels to me that the MEAC is making the MEAC Media Day a Michael Vick, Desean Jackson welcoming party. That's just the way that I'm viewing it, and I'm basing this all off of the decision to make LeSean McCoy a special guest host at the event. That doesn't really make sense to me. I get why he's there. It's very clear. So let me not say that it doesn't make sense to me, but it's a decision that is quite surprising. It's a decision that if it goes the way I think it goes, I don't know if it was necessary for MEAC Media Day. I would have actually used him for an alternative, but we'll get into that in a little bit. I originally was supposed to do Vick, Jackson, Mo Williams. That was supposed to be the lineup in today's episode. I previewed that on Monday. Now Mo Williams is going to get pushed back to Friday, which I'm actually happy about because it feels like a feature Friday. And if you are one of the everydayers who's been here for a long time, you remember Feature Friday. It's been a while since I've done that. I didn't do it all this offseason, but this feels like a Feature Friday type of topic, so I'm happy for it. But I just replaced Mo Williams with LeSean McCoy. So I kept it in that same ballpark of former players, except McCoy is not an HBCU coach. What he will be in a matter of a week and a half, he will be a host at MEAC Media Day. Don't worry, Tiffany and Jay will still be there, but they promoted, or they're promoting McCoy as a guest host. What does that look like? Because to me, I know what his value is. His value is the fact that he has a relationship with Desean Jackson and he has a relationship with Michael Vick. That is the value of LeSean McCoy. But how valuable is that value at this specific event? Because this is not a Michael Vick welcoming party. This is not a Desean Jackson welcoming party. Or is it? See, I understand that MEAC Media Day looks drastically different in 2025 than it has before. It does not look like the 2024, 2023, 2022 editions. It doesn't look like that because you're not going to have it in a hotel. You're not going to have it, I think it was previously in Norfolk, Virginia. You're not going to have it there. Instead, you're going to Baltimore. Instead, you're going to have it in a professional stadium. The Ravens Stadium will be the host of MEAC Media Day. And that, to me, is a great way to amplify the event. That is a great way to showcase the presence of Vick and Jackson has changed some things, and there is a greater appeal. That is a great statement there. I don't think that it was the only way to make that statement because I think that the SWAC, they didn't change much about their media day, but it was clearly a bigger event when when Deion Sanders was there. But this was a great way to stamp it and say, look at what we're doing. We are elevating as a conference. And I do think that was more of an amplifying move To me, the inclusion of LeSean McCoy is more of a comfort move. Because what does he actually amplify? Do I think that more people are going to watch MEAC Media Day because LeSean McCoy is there? I don't. I really don't. Um, I talk about how I think this is going to go. The way I expect this to kind of go is that he's a special guest host that will be present during the Norfolk section and the Delaware section. When Norfolk State is up and Michael Vick and the players are present, I think that LeSean McCoy will be there. When Delaware State and Desean Jackson and the players are present, I think that LeSean McCoy will be there. But I don't think it's overly useful unless he's present when North Carolina Central is there, when South Carolina State is there, when Morgan State is there, when Howard is there. I want him to be present for all of these events. Now, here's the thing. If he's going to be present for all of these teams, then he's going to have to be knowledgeable in some capacity. I'm not expecting him to lead because, as I mentioned earlier, this is still going to be a Tiffany and Jay ran program. I don't expect that LeSean McCoy will step in and he will be the leader, even when Vick and Jackson are there. They may take a slight step back, but I expect that probably Tiffany, you may see Jay end up getting replaced for LeSean. That kind of makes sense. I kind of just thought that right now. That actually makes sense as far as a rotation to make sure it's not too many cooks in the kitchen, not too many people. A friend of mine and myself were just talking about the idea of 3-man broadcast booths. And I don't really like it. I think it's too many voices. I don't think that enough people can shine. I think that people end up talking over each other. So you may end up replacing Jay. I don't love that, but it makes the most sense to me if you're only going to use McCoy in a limited capacity. However, here we go. The point is, I think that Tiffany will guide the conversation because LeSean is on TV. He's in media, but I don't believe that the structure of what MEAC Media Day is really kind of leans towards his strengths. I think he is more entertainment. I think he's more casual. I think that the event is casual, but I think for him, I don't think he's trying to get into anything. I think all of his questions are going to be based around the people he knows, which is the value of him. But it brings me back to my original question. How valuable is that value at MEAC Media Day? The alternative that I would have used is I think LeSean McCoy would have been perfect. I think that, granted, it's on ESPN. The Norfolk State versus Delaware State game is on ESPN, so maybe you don't want to do this seeing that McCoy's show is on Fox Sports 1. But I would have had, leading up to the game, I would have had an interview with Desean Jackson, Michael Vick, and LeSean McCoy going into that Spartan versus Hornets game. That's where I think that, and I wouldn't even call it an interview. I would call it a sit-down. It's 3 friends getting together, talking about a historic event. That is where I think that LeSean McCoy's connection to Vick and Jackson would have been best used, because that's the type of format that I think he actually would shine in. But as far as Media Day goes, I would like for him to be involved with all of the teams if he's going to be promoted as a special guest host. That's what I would like. I would like to see him be knowledgeable. I would like to see him participate. And I would like to see him actually look like he cares about more than just his friends. And that goes for Norfolk State too. That goes for Delaware State too. I don't want all your questions to be, how does it feel to be coached by Michael Vick to the players? Right? Like, I don't want that. I want him to ask questions from a player perspective in a way that I know he has the ability to. We can sit here and talk this, that, and the third about McCoy's media acumen, because I know that's often debated. But he was a former player. I think that he can talk to players. Matter of fact, the show that he's on Fox Sports 1, they had a rebrand where it's all players. That's their thing. It's called The Facility. It's all players. I expect him to have the ability to talk to collegiate athletes in a similar fashion, and I actually would like to see him do it. But anyway, speaking of something that people would like to see be done, Michael Vick is going to be coaching in about 2 months. Actually, about a month. Yeah, we're about a month away, not even 2. Gosh, summer is flying. Summer is flying, but we're about a month away from Michael Vick having his debut, and that debut will be aired on national television as it's been moved to Thursday. Let's break down the change and why I think more is to come as we continue with Locked On HBCU. Today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel, and FanDuel is here for Wimbledon. We're getting into the quarterfinals on the men and women's side of the bracket, so you already know the time is dwindling down. It's the biggest event. It's the biggest event on the tennis calendar on an annual basis, and you want to make sure that you can make a little bit of money from it. Unfortunately, Coco Gauff is already out. I think Djokovic is still alive. I think Alcaraz is still alive. Actually, he might have went this morning. I didn't check out Tuesday's episode, and we're here on Tuesday right now. I didn't check out Tuesday's games, and we're here right now. So whatever matches are going on in the quarterfinals, last I seen was most of the round of 16. Make some money on it, even if you don't know them. You go to UFC, you can go to baseball. It's all available and all at your fingertips. So even if you're not the most knowledgeable about one sport, that's cool. We're in a slower period as far as sports goes, but we do still have a big-time tennis event. Put some small money down. You know what? If you win, put down a $5 bet, you win. You get $150 back in bonus bets if you're new to FanDuel. It's that simple. Small goals or small bets, big returns. Go to FanDuel.com to make every moment more. As we continue rolling on today's episode of Locked On HBCU, I appreciate you for making this your first listen of the day every day. For your second listen, make sure you're checking out Locked On NFL. We're only moments away. That's what it feels like. We're only moments away from NFL training camps going into effect. A week for certain teams who are going to be in the NFL Hall of Fame game. But let's continue rolling. A guy who has been electrifying his whole career. We're speaking about the NFL. Michael Vick defined an era in the NFL as far as athletic quarterbacks, as far as black quarterbacks goes. Now he's on the sidelines in a different capacity. Now he's out here at Norfolk State as a head coach instead of a player. Though he is showing off his arm, though he is showing that I can still sling it, I would like to see him do a throwing competition with Carter instead of just, members of the staff. That would be really interesting. But neither here nor there, because it isn't going to be about how well Vick throws the ball, how he can hit a target. It's going to be about how well can Vick coach. And we'll see that on prime time in week 1. They'll have the second HBCU game of the season because their opening game versus Towson has been moved from Saturday to Thursday and has been upgraded to a prime time matchup. You're going to have this game under the lights in the Spartans' home stadium. This is big time, and I do not believe that this is the last time we'll hear about a shift in the Spartan schedule. To me, you have first off, you have the MEAC SWAC Challenge. That'll be the first one, and then they'll be on the midweek, so you'll have that. That's what I mean when I say the second HBCU game of the season. You have a standalone in week 0, and then you'll have this standalone on Thursday night. I don't think that any other games are played earlier. I don't think so, but we'll see as we get closer there. The point here is that this is a big-time change, and it's another example of the Vick effect. And no, I don't mean this in the same way that I'm talking about the MEAC hyper-focusing MEAC Media Day on Vick, on Jackson. I mean this in a way of Norfolk State has not had a midweek game since 2013. It's been over a decade for sure. It's either 2013 or 2014. Forgive me for that. But they haven't had a middle of the week game in over a decade, and they're having 2 this year. One, the first game of the season, and then once again in the Norfolk State versus Delaware State game. So what does that tell you? It tells you the appeal. It tells you that people are not only interested, but the brands feel like there are market chances. There's the ability to market this in a bigger way, right? So when I say this isn't the first one or this isn't the last one, let me tell you why. This one made sense. Vick's first game, his first home game. It's a winnable game. So I think Norfolk is probably like, yeah, let's do that. It's Towson, right? Like you beat Towson 2 years ago. They beat you last year, but you beat them 2 years ago. This is a winnable game for the Spartans. But let's go through the rest of their schedule, because right now, most of their schedule does not have a time on it. Most of their schedule does not have a time attached to that Saturday, which means it's still all fluid. I'm going to go through each game and tell you if I think that this could be a game that ends up getting, I'm going to say flexed. You got to remember, guys, I come from a pro football background where these certain terms, I think it's flexed, but I know that's what it's called in the NFL when you change these things. Towson has already been done. We've broken down why that is the case. First game, first home game. It's a winnable game. So I think Norfolk was probably happy to have that. But the first two are the reasons why the networks are interested in doing it. Then you go Virginia State. I don't think that that's going to get national broadcast, but I do think it's a strong contender to be an HBCU Go game. And I do think that that will be, I would have to look at the other games that are on the second week of action, but I think that has to be one of the leading candidates. Norfolk State versus Virginia State, nice rivalry. It's good appeal there. Rutgers, it's already on the big network, the Big Ten network, but I mean, realistically, it's a money game. That's not going to be nationally broadcast. However, it will be readily available for most people. They'll be able to see that game. Sacred Heart, I don't think so. Wagner, I don't think so. Hampton, that's the one that I'm feeling really good about. That Virginia rivalry. It's the bigger, the bigger schools that are having that rivalry in the state. I think it makes sense. You have the brand of Hampton. Hampton is a huge brand. I don't think Hampton as a brand gets enough respect when we're speaking about athletics, because I think their brand is primarily in academics. I think when I think Hampton, I do think academics, but it's still the school in general. I kind of feel that same way about Howard. I feel that same way about Morehouse. Like, there are schools where their brand is academics, but their brand is still their school, if that makes sense. Now, Grambling, I view Grambling in an athletic aspect. Jackson State, I view them in an athletic standpoint, right? Like, that's how I view these different schools, big brands, but why do they have their big brands? It's different. But Hampton, mix the brand for the school, brand for the individual of Michael Vick. I think that there's some possibility to flex that game into a Friday slot, see that have a prime time. I think it's going to be difficult for Norfolk State to have an out-of-conference game that's also a prime time game. I really do. And it's going to be difficult for you to do that within the MEAC, but at least they have the conference backing them there. Speaking of which, we're going to get to MEAC play in a second. And then you have Wofford. I don't think Wofford's going to happen. So right now, through the out-of-conference schedule, you're looking at Towson and you're looking at Hampton. Towson for sure. Hampton is a really good possibility. I think this is a strong contestant for this, in my opinion. Now we get to MEAC play. And I think this is where things get interesting because, like I said a second ago, this is where the conference becomes an advocate. This is where the conference gets to step up and say, this is the game that you need to put on TV. This is the game that we need to flex to a Friday. This is a game that we need to have as a night matchup that we can air. I think it's going to be difficult to have a Saturday, really, really difficult to have a Saturday game that's going to be on any of the ESPN networks that is not ESPN Plus. I do think that's going to be difficult for you. If it were to happen, it would happen in conference play. Don't think it's going to happen, though. I think Friday is the way to go. So what games do I think have the best ability to be flexed? Let's go through the schedule. South Carolina State. I think this gets a primetime look. So just in all transparency, I think 3 to 5 games you could see Norfolk State having some sort of primetime, some sort of national televised game. That's what I think, 3 to 5. They're already at 2, so I'm predicting 1 to maybe 3 more. I'm already at 2. I'm going to get to, actually it's 3 to 6 if you really be honest, but I don't think you're going to get that many. South Carolina State. Teams involved. South Carolina State just comes off of a Celebration Bowl berth. You're looking at one of the premier NFL talent, right, pools out of HBCUs. So I think that this makes sense. And it's homecoming. So I think that you could see it. Delaware State's already done. North Carolina Central, I think you should really consider doing that. Morgan State, I just don't think so. North Carolina Central, they've been a really good team for years. I think that if you're the MEAC, you don't want to just be all on the jock of Vick, right? You want to have quality games. So that means quality opponents, especially because you don't know what the Spartans are going to look like in year 1 of the Vick era. North Carolina Central, to me, has been a model of consistency for the last 4 years. We're going on almost a half decade of them being right there on the cusp or breaking through. So this is a team that I think you should want to broadcast. They have appeal. They have respect as far as FCS wins go out of conference. So I would put North Carolina Central on this list. And I would even argue it's more about Central than it is Norfolk. Then lastly, you have Howard. That's the last game of the season. If this game is important, it's going to happen. It's the last game, though. If neither one of these teams are in contention, it's not happening. It's that simple. At this point in the season, in this point of the season, the conference is not going to put a game on national television simply because Michael Vick is there. Just not going to happen. So if this was earlier, I would say, yeah, I think same thing with Hampton. Brand, individual, mixes together, great appeal. The only thing that really works, or one of the things that really works against Michael Vick and Norfolk State, is the fact that Desean Jackson and Delaware State exist. So they're probably going to get, it might be 2 games on national TV in the middle of the week from the MEAC. You already have one of them, which is Delaware State versus Norfolk State. So it may only be room for one more. That's the only thing that I say hurts. There's not a lot of national televised games on the table for the MEAC, and you probably want to promote these teams. You probably want to promote Desean Jackson. You probably want to promote Michael Vick. The way that they're handling MEAC Media Day tells me that they really do want to do that. So that's the one thing working against them. It's not a lot for a FCS school that already doesn't get a lot of love from ESPN. So just the way that this goes. Now, as we push forward, speaking of Michael Vick, speaking of Desean Jackson, Jackson saw how Vick moved, and he said, you know what? I'm going to make jerseys of my own, and it's a great thing that they did it. I'll explain why as we continue and wrap up today's episode of Locked On HBCU. As we're wrapping up today's episode of Locked On HBCU, I appreciate you for making this your first listen of the day every day, making it all the way to segment 3, and I thank you 2 times for that. Thank you. Thank you. Now, we've already broken down how the MEAC is treating MEAC Media Day. We broke down Michael Vick in his primetime debut as the Norfolk State head coach. Well, let's go ahead and get into Desean Jackson and what he's doing, because he's actually following the Michael Vick model of having your own jersey with the team that you coach. Great plan. This is actually phenomenal. I don't think that we spoke about this when Michael Vick did it, because the rules hadn't been changed as far as the revenue sharing and everything that's happening with college athletics. This now allows you, the proceeds go to Norfolk State. The proceeds go to, or at least part of it goes to Norfolk State. Part of it goes to Delaware State. And I think that this just makes a lot of sense. This makes a lot of sense to me, to just go ahead and use the star power of your coach to generate more money before you even get to the games, so that now you can pay your players a little bit better, because these schools are paying players more directly. They have more opportunities now than they did just a year ago, just a month ago. But I don't feel any shame in saying that Desean Jackson is kind of copying the mold. First off, that's why blueprints are sold. That's why blueprints are made, so that you can follow them. And plus, they ain't leaning away from it. You can find these on HBCU. Let me see. I think it's HBCU DSU. I think that's what it's called. HBCUDSU.com. Yeah. HBCUDSU.com. And on there, on the graphic, where they have all the colors, all the jerseys right there in front for you, front and back, it says HBCU Battle of the Legends, October 30th, 2025. Hornets versus Spartans. You scroll down, and it's going to tell you history will be made on the gridiron as Delaware State and Norfolk State delivers a legendary showdown that fans will never forget. They're not leaning away from this. This is all about Desean Jackson versus Michael Vick. They're not leaning and saying, oh, no, it's not this, it's not that. This is exactly what it is. So if they're going to lean into the game, you don't think that they're obviously seeing that Michael Vick put a Norfolk State 7 jerseys? You don't think that they're doing that? I don't think that this is a stretch here. I don't think that this is an insult here. I actually stumbled across some Bruce Lee quotes this weekend that really, to me, drove home how I feel about the decision to do this. And I'm only going to give you one. But I did stumble across a couple. I'm going to give you the better one. This one says, adapt what is useful, reject what is useless, and add what is specifically your own. Actually, I lied. I'm going to give you both of them. Always be yourself, express yourself, have faith in yourself. Do not go out and look for a successful personality and duplicate it, right? I thought these were dope quotes. They stuck with me. So when I saw this, I said, this kind of applies. Adapt what is useful and reject what is useless. There's no adding what is specifically your own here, but it's about the fact that they saw a great opportunity, or they saw a great move by Norfolk State, and Delaware State said, let's do that too. I'm sure that Vick talked to Jackson, whether Jackson called him or Vick called him and said, hey, you got to do this. This is racking in. They paying for it, right? And it's going to help your program. I don't think there's any gatekeeping happening in this situation. So I think in general, somebody called somebody or somebody saw this and saw it was a great idea. You take what is useful. It's all about building on what the last person did, right? Like, I'm sure if Deion was still at Jackson State, they'd be doing something like this. And then the other part about always be yourself is I like this move because it feels like a Desean Jackson move. Desean Jackson is extremely charismatic. He is extremely in your face. And I think that having a jersey when you're the coach is a very in your face thing to do. Now, some people may find that a little bit tasteless. I personally don't. I think that it's great marketing, and I think that his personality has always been great every time I've seen him. So it's all dependent on how you feel about the guy. But when I say that this is a very Desean Jackson move, please know that that's complimentary, or at least just me giving a description. I don't think it's a compliment or an insult. I think it's just an observation over everything else. Now, when these two teams do face off each other at the HBCU Battle of Legends, I did not know that's what we were calling it, but I can roll with it. When they do face off at this game, it's going to be in Philadelphia. You're going to see a bunch of Eagles jerseys. You're going to see some Jalen Hurts jerseys. You're going to see some Saquon Barkley jerseys. But most importantly, you're going to see a whole lot of Vick and a whole lot of Jackson jerseys from the Eagle days, because there's going to be fans who are local who just want to come watch this game. I think that's the beautiful part about having it at the Eagle Stadium. Here's the other part, though. Now that it is the universities, right? Like we can talk about their impact on the local community and all of these things, but it is the university at the end of the day. At the end of the day, is Hornets, Spartans. And these jerseys will give Jackson and Vick the ability to be represented in the crowds in a way that most schools can't. You just can't do it. I love Trey Oliver. I don't know what they would do to market Trey Oliver to the fan base. I would love if they found a way to do it, but it's not going to be through a jersey. It's not the same. Tremaine Jackson has done a phenomenal job at Prairie View. It's not going to be done through a jersey. It just isn't, So it's different. You have to find something that's true to you. It's like I said, always be yourself. Adapt what is useful. These are the first lines of both of the quotes I use from Bruce Lee. Ain't me, all right? But from Bruce Lee, you got to be yourself. You got to use your advantages. Excuse me. Can't talk to that at the end. But I think that this gives the ability to really, really have jerseys galore. Red jerseys, black jerseys, white jerseys, green jerseys, right? Because they both have black and white, but they have red and green as well. This is beautiful. This was well done, and I hope that this continues. We'll be back on Friday talking about Mo Williams, another big-time guy, talking about Mo Williams entering the Hall of Fame for our feature Friday, as well as a little bit more basketball talk with A&T versus Hampton at the HBCU All-Star Classic. In the meantime, in between time, until the next time that we hear each other, family, take care, stay blessed. Peace.